Just ran away from a Grindr hookup, I'm scared. Hi, I've never posted anything here, this just happened like 20 minutes ago and I'm honestly shaking and I just want to vent and hear some opinions. So I, 24M, was looking for hookups on Grindr. I know, bad idea to start, when an account that had already talked to me at least 5 other times said hello. The other messages were all the same. I just never responded. BC, I wasn't really attracted to him by his PP. He looked like 40 and I usually don't hook up with people that far from my age, and id why, but this time I responded. The conversation was pretty straightforward. His profile already said that he was looking for a hookup, that he liked feminine young men, preferably hairless or shaved, and that you/were down to use female lingerie. I don't meet those standards lol, but I replied anyway. He said he liked femboys, but nothing about body hair or lingerie on the chat. I'm just young and a bottom lol. We arranged IR pretty quick, which is kind of a red flag now that I think about it. He had a white windowless van, another red flag, that we could use somewhere private outside the city. My city is small and has big farmlands around, so those surrounding areas are pretty empty. We exchanged photos and I actually liked what I saw, cause it wasn't that he was ugly, it was mostly about the age thing, but I was into it now. I told him the street where I live, but told him to meet me a couple of blocks away from my house for security reasons. Now is when it gets scary for me. When he arrived, I tried to look at the license plate but couldn't really cause he parked kinda fast in front of me and opened the door. But he didn't really look like the picture, he looked a bit older and skinnier, so I hesitated a little but was already with my foot in there. He looked at me and said, "Hurry up, someone could see," which isn't really that weird in the Grindr hookup world, but scared me a little more. Now get mad at me, I still entered the van. Why really? I know I have a really big problem saying no to most stuff, but this was scaring me from the moment he arrived and I still went inside SMH. Once there, he said he didn't have condoms, so we went to a gas station literally a block away, and I was so freaked out already, my mind was running in circles trying to make up an excuse or just how to tell him I wasn't interested anymore, but when we arrived at the station, I had an idea. He left the keys in and went inside. I was afraid he would catch me running away midway through, so I waited until it was his turn so he would be distracted. Once the cashier started talking to him, I opened the door, left it semi-closed to not make a sound, and just ran. I was like 4 blocks from my house, but the surrounding streets of the gas station are big open avenues, and I wanted to be in a much more private enclosed area so he couldn't find me that easily. I tried to use alleyways and look at every direction all the time to see if he was following me, cause I didn't want him to find where I live. I must have looked insane lol. When I was just getting to my apartment I saw a white van passing by, but if it was him or not, I hid. Now I'm here, writing this, still scared. I know I was an asshole for leaving the van with the keys on and everything, but I was really panicking. I don't know what to do now. I blocked his profile on Grindr, and actually I don't think I'm gonna use it for a while. Thank you if you read it all, and thanks in advance for your replies. Let me analyze this story for you. This story, just ran away from a Grindr hookup, I'm scared, is a raw, vulnerable account of survival instinct clashing with the paralyzing fear of confrontation. It's not just about a bad hookup. It's about what happens when boundaries are blurred, gut feelings are ignored, and someone finds themselves on the edge of something that could have gone very, very wrong. At its core, this is a story about a near miss with danger and how hard it is to say no, even when everything in your body is screaming that you should. The emotional architecture of the story: fear, shame, and clarity. From the first paragraph, we know the narrator is shaken. "I'm honestly shaking," they write. This isn't a story of embarrassment. It's a story of fear, the kind that comes when the social norms and politeness we're trained to follow suddenly put us in danger. The narrator knows all the red flags. A white, windowless van. A hookup outside of town, away from anyone who might intervene. A man older than he appeared in photos. Rushing the narrator into the vehicle, literally saying, "Hurry up, someone could see." These are not subtle signs. But the narrator's response is not uncommon. They override their intuition out of politeness, pressure, and habit. They admit, "I know I have a really big problem saying no." This is a quiet tragedy for so many people, especially queer men navigating a world of hypersexualized, low-commitment spaces like Grindr, where consent is often assumed, and hesitation is frowned upon. The turning point is not the van. It's the gas station. By the time they're in the van, it's too late to pretend it's casual. This isn't about sex anymore. It's about escape. And that's where the most important part of the story happens. The narrator doesn't freeze. They strategize. They wait. They watch for the moment of distraction, and they run. This is a survival story. It might not involve violence, but it involves the exact same instinct: find the door, find the exit, get to safety. And they do. Barefoot in a mental sense, but running for their life. What's unspoken but present, this wasn't just creepy. It could have been catastrophic. He didn't look like his photos. That alone isn't a crime, but it's often a sign of deliberate deception. He rushed the narrator, pressured them to enter the van immediately. The hookup was to take place outside the city, in isolated farmland, with no condoms, and a stranger behind the wheel. This setup has every hallmark of a potential assault, or worse. The narrator might be minimizing it, maybe I overreacted, but every instinct they followed was correct. This story is also about shame, but not the kind it should be. The narrator says, I know I was an asshole for leaving the van with the keys on and everything. No. You were not. You were terrified and had every reason to be. That van is not your responsibility. Your safety is. There's a broader, sadder commentary here about how queer men, especially young ones, are often expected to navigate dangerous situations with grace, humor, and zero pushback. The narrator apologizes to a stranger who put them in danger. That's the legacy of a culture that still teaches queer people their safety is secondary to someone else's expectations. Stylistically, the story is urgent and confessional. It's written like a breathless recounting, full of spiraling thoughts and self-checks, mirroring the mental fog and adrenaline of a traumatic experience. This makes the story feel real, close, and heartbreaking. The tone moves from disbelief, to fear, to guilt, to relief, but not resolution. The narrator made it out, but they are not okay yet. This story is not about a Grindr hookup gone wrong. It's about someone learning the cost of silence, and the power of listening to fear. It's a warning. Not just about creeps and vans, but about the way people can train themselves to ignore their own alarm bells out of politeness, validation seeking, or inexperience. And most of all, it's a reminder. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to run. You are allowed to choose survival over explanation. This narrator did. And they're here to tell the story. If you'd like, I can help you craft a version of this story as a personal essay, or a public post that raises awareness. It's powerful, and you told it with courage.